Друзі, Друзі, ми продовжуємо
So, dear friends, we resume our work. Sorry for the small delay. We are beginning the third session of our today's conference. Connectivity and communications in temporarily occupied and deoccupied territories, prospects of Ukraine's recovery. Now I would like to invite onto the stage all of the speakers planned for this discussion. Stanislav Probitko, Director of the Department of Mobile Communications Department and the Ministry of Digital Transformation, Serhiy Ponomaryov from the SSC, Alexander Zverev from the State Security and Defense Council, Oleg Chernyshev from the National Communications Service. Semenyak Alexei is joining us online from ONNCC, Natalia Klitna from APPK, Savchuk Alexander, and Dmitro Vitaliev. Please, the logic of the session, behind the session, is to discuss the issues of communication and connectivity for both temporarily occupied territories and the territories which are to be recovered, which are to expect renovation and recovery because they have been deoccupied. Let me start by saying that in the Ukrainian discourse, there's not so much conversation about technological solutions concerning what to do for the Ukrainians staying in the temporarily occupied territories. It's very difficult to get through to them, and we know that right now the Russian internet is working there and connection runs through Russia for them. Therefore, we decided to start with the presentation of the Western experience, the organization called eQualitie, about possible technical solutions available in order to establish connections with the temporarily occupied territories. Dmitry, the floor is yours.
All right, I'm sorry, English again, everybody. And I have the nice opportunity to speak after lunch. So I hope to wake you up with some technical talk. I have a presentation, I hope. Anyway, yes, I'm the founding director of eQualitie. Some people call us eQualitie, some people call us eQualitie. I think it doesn't matter what you call us, just call us. We were established about 10 years ago in Montreal. Our mission is to create technology and technical services to help defend human rights on the internet. The other one. The other presentation, if possible. Yeah, so I will talk to you today about technology we have created in response to the full force invasion of last year. Technology we stood up in March of 22, and why we did it, and how it can be used now also in occupied territories. I will also share with you how we have adapted existing technology to the realities of internet connectivity in occupied territories. And I will share with you new technology we are introducing now for this very scenario too. Okay, there we go. So I said everything on the first slide. We can go to the second. So the DCOMS project was rolled out in March. The purpose was to kind of expect the worst situation in terms of internet connectivity. Internet cables would be damaged, would be cut by the occupying forces because of military warfare, and people in different cities and towns in Ukraine would be disconnected from the rest of the network. Now, because our internet by and large is a centralized internet, everybody has to connect to WhatsApp or Telegram or Gmail or whatever, When your network is isolated, you cannot do that anymore. However, the internet can work in many different ways. And this forms a lot of our technical activity at the moment, is to bring back and popularize decentralized internet services. Services that work on any type of network. If it has 20 users, 200 users, 2,000 users, it doesn't matter. If you can still connect to your ISP in Rivne, in Lviv, in Kherson, and one of our services standing there, you can use secure messaging, you can use blogging, you can communicate with each other. So this is the DCOM's service. It's in 10 Ukrainian locations. We are looking to have more locations, particularly in the east of Ukraine. There are obviously various security considerations of running any type of services inside occupied territories, and I'll be happy to speak with you more about that. Another project that we feel is a web browser we have developed, but it is really good at getting around internet censorship. As you very well know, a lot of the occupied territories in Ukraine have now been rerouted to be part of the Russian internet. Therefore, people living in those territories are also under Russian storm surveillance and various censorship of Roskomnadzor. So this browser is in Ukraine. You're automatically helping people behind Russian censorship in occupied Ukraine get around this censorship. We have as many nodes as we have users, and this number is growing every day. So now the challenge is expecting the degradation of the internet in occupied territories. You may have read on the internet that Russia is considering to splinter from the rest of the internet to become an isolated network. You know, what happens in that scenario? How do you reach Ukrainians stuck inside a splintered, isolated network? So I'm going to show some of the things that we're doing. Of course, there are different things that can be done. The other advantage of using BitTorrent is that it's a file sharing protocol. It means that content inside the network continues to exist and to propagate among different users. It's actually impossible really to delete content once it is already inside the peer-to-peer network. So this is our mission now. Populate the local network with as much useful, new, factual, interesting Ukrainian content as possible. We can package websites and rebuild them in an isolated network. We can package videos. We can package software play stores. And this is what we're doing actually in a few different countries around the world at the moment. Here you see the site of our partner, Internews, scraped, packaged, rebuilt inside the BitTorrent network, and then accessed with the Sino browser. It looks just like the Internews Ukraine website should look like. Now, this is a slightly scary slide, but the mission is to populate an isolated network with new content. How do you do that? If there is no terrestrial connection, you can go wireless. Now, standard wireless connections are not very long, so you can go higher. You can use satellite connectivity. We've spoken about Starlinks here in the morning. You know, Starlinks are very useful for internet satellite connectivity. However, Starlinks are also triangulated. It's not a very safe technology to run inside an adversarial network. So we are building our technology on TV satellites. Lots of people have TV satellites all around the world, also in eastern Ukraine. And we're using methods that allow us to put data inside TV satellite. So you're watching a show, you record this show, you bring the show to your computer, and there you have data. You have files, you have videos, you have websites. And thanks to the BitTorrent network, you start to share them with other people. So if you're interested in more details on this technology, it is a live technology. Please come and talk to me after. So that's it. This is the last slide. One of the founding members of the Electronic Frontier Foundation famously said many years ago that censorship on the internet is not going to work because the internet will route around censorship. And I propose to you, a highly technical and sophisticated crowd, that there are many systems, many protocols, many services from the last 30 years of the existence of internet that we can use to securely communicate, propagate data to anybody connected to any sort of network. That's what we're doing, and I hope that's what we continue to be doing together with your help as well. Thank you.
Дякуємо, Дмитро.
Thank you, Dmitro. And now we would like to switch to our Ukrainian speakers, Ukrainian guests. We realize that it is not going to be a full swing discussion of the temporarily occupied territories. Some things are still confidential and need clearance to be divulged. But let's approach the National Council. The National Council is the biggest player here with many solutions in store. Oleg, please tell us how many licensees are still remaining in the temporarily occupied territories. Temporarily occupied territories. Well, in those territories, together with the Crimea, 283 licensees are still operating. And after the full-scale invasion, about 47 satellite broadcasters ceased or suspended their broadcast. We have 79 broadcasters on satellite, not encrypted, and 20 encrypted. So tell us, please, what should be the destiny of the licensees who willingly or unwillingly started some cooperation with the occupying force in the occupying administration? Well, I don't think that they will have any prospects of development in Ukraine. People have different circumstances. They are in different situations. We have this war since 2014. A lot of people lost their companies in the Crimea and Donetsk, Luhansk region. Some went to mainland Ukraine. Some of them are still there operating somehow in the so-called self-proclaimed Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics and the Crimea. This is one part. When the full-scale invasion started from the south and the north of our country, there were hostilities approaching. Many broadcasters suspended or altogether stopped their operations. We had that case when in Kherson a local broadcaster started cooperating with the aggressor. In some cases, they would take the property, raid the property, and bring on the side the Russian-speaking journalists with Russian nationality to replace the Ukrainian journalists. And anyway, after the deoccupation, we will have to filter those people. can Ukrainians get the signal on the occupied territories since 2014? We have arranged for many activities for the people in the occupied territories to have access to the Ukrainian content, the TV, radio content, and broadcasts. And at some point, we had many channels opened on network. Then they were encrypted, but with the start of the full-scale invasion, the majority of consent and the radio frequency center calculated allotments of frequencies in the occupied territories of Luhansk and Donetsk regions and the Crimea, the multiplex 7x7 now installed by the concern, by the holding. The first 7 transmitters are placed in the territory not under the control. This is TV and radio broadcasting. What is also very important, the medium wave, whether it can be reintroduced and what number of receivers or listeners can get the signal, and we have the new transmitter and the antenna systems damaged. So this media wave broadcasting can be reintroduced. And from the internet, in my opinion, those who had the will found the way to receive the web resource and the TV and radio from Ukraine, from mainland under control. One question. Do you plan to deploy additional transmitters to cover the left bank Ukraine, Kherson, because part of Kherson region, in the vicinity of Kherson Chief Tower, they have something. My dad called me, thanks to Kyivstan Vodafone. I don't know how they do that, but they do that. And on the left bank of the Dnieper River, they have this connection. How about TV? Because even the Russians have no TV broadcasts or mobile operators for that matter. This is for the first month of the invasion, when the Russians attacked the RRT assets. And the first session discussed damage of the cable networks. I witnessed it when in the Kiev region providers heroically would restore their operations and rebuild their infrastructure. We have certain appropriations for the antenna units at Izium in the east and the south of Ukraine, the territories which were occupied, and our concern is doing a lot for that development. On the 3rd of March last year, we planned to have a call on for MXIM, the tender competition. That's the meter range transmitters for the multiplex. It's now installed, and we hope that it will, on the one hand, cover the territories which are not covered by wood, but on the other hand, will be able to penetrate deeper into the occupied territories with the broadcasting signal from the Ukrainian broadcasters. Do you approach the international entities to win the range back and the frequencies occupied by the Russians. For the transmitters, on the one hand, we collected all the necessary information, the Ministry for Reintegration of the occupied territories, and we referred it to them. The damage incurred by our licensees during the period of occupation invasion, and that is for the losses and the frequency range. Many people approach us and they point to Kharkiv region from Belgorod till 2014. They could still receive that signal from Belgorod, and especially now when radio Жизнь is 192.7, 92.4, 92.0, and we keep approaching the SSC, the Special Communications Administration. They, under the international agreements signed by Ukraine and their regulations, they respond to such situations. Well, with your permission, I would like to chip in on behalf of SSC. Let me confirm this is true that our range frequency resources used in not just that, but also the new arrivals. A month ago, I was at International Telecommunication Union, ITU, and we had to focus our attention of the leadership of the ITU on our frequency fund, and we prepared the joint statement, and secondly, we are now getting our ideas ready on possible joint resolution. But this is not for the utilization of frequency resource, but the artificial interference coming from the Russian side, and not quite correct utilization of the frequency resource in Ukraine, but we do not control it. They should, yes, the water area, for example, Black Sea water area, and with international organizations we have done that, and last year we had those applications. The quality of such applications made it possible for us to arrive at some solutions for the ITU not to have any representatives from Russia on the board and on board. So influence of Ukraine in the space where we own some frequency resource, radio frequency resource, and this is our mission together with the international organizations. We have to focus attention of the international institutions on the actual situation, and we've done that on numerous occasions. So if we take the chronology since 2014, the international institutions have not been quite quick in their reaction to the facts when in the annexed Crimea they had competition for the FM frequency, TRS-1, TRS-2, virtual mobile operators networks, and now we have this process when Rostelecom under different shields, boxes and pretexts and operators are entering Kherson region, Zaporizhia region, Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast regions of Ukraine, and that is presented as some most operators doing that on their own behalf. There are certain voices urging us to block certain statements or resolutions that we plan for the international organizations. We can trace it in many cases, not just the international players. Let's take the UN let me be on the side of caution because you understand the context and the implications, and I understand that this is about the missiles being down. So it's a technological conference, but the final beneficiary of what we do is the general public of Ukraine. Many of them are now in the occupied territories. So what can we do as private sector operators or governmental agents to do, can do for them to see that they are remembered, that they are not forgotten, they are being discussed, their affairs, and they are expected back with the territories after the occupation. Can we get this message across? Is there such a message? We do not have the two ministries here, Ministry for Reintegration of the Occupied Territories and National Council, together with the radio frequency centers, with the RRT concern. Together we, the center, are calculating the range for allotments of frequencies to use the available ones to increase the capacity for transmitters. As an example, when they took over in Mykolaiv, that transmitters were used with a high capacity to reach out to Kherson for the people to hear some Ukrainian information and listen to it. Where we can, where we have the coverage from satellites, people with experience can see, watch the Ukrainian TV with access to internet, the internet connection. They can also establish, I suppose, to see what is happening in Ukraine and to hear some principal messages, our messages. And the most important source of such messages, Ministry of KP, and we'll have also the overseas territories, or the people who are left the territory of Ukraine and the territory not under the governmental control for the territories under control and abroad. But we cannot influence the situation because when we talk to the people who experienced the occupation, they all talk about occupying Magyar, that they were forgotten altogether. And I talked to people from Mariupol, and the government changed, and you are not included in anything. There are no amenities or utilities of any sort available. So some nationals under this information pressure could even